Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 574. 574. October the 11th, 2018, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before I get started on the breaking news of the day, I just want to comment on something a lot of news commenters have been commenting on the last day or so regarding the rotten Reverend Clinton, Crooked Hillary. They're talking, of course, about some of these comments she's been making. They're talking about the fact that she and Bill are going to go out on an evening with the Clintons thing. They're talking about what all that means. And yes, a lot of people are saying, well, she's trying to stay relevant and they just don't know how to stay away from politics. And these things are all true to a decent extent. I agree with that. But there's something else much, much deeper and darker going on here with the rotten Reverend Clinton. As most of you know, back on TowerGate day number 47, TowerGate day, video day 47, a long time ago, over 500 videos ago, I said that this coup plot has the fingerprints and the smell of a Clinton operation. And now we can see, as we get more and more evidence, that I was correct. That this coup plot, that Hillary Clinton was very likely the organizer, the instigator of this entire plot. So keep that in mind, because she knows this is true. And she also knows that if the Republicans hold on to the House, that these investigations will continue, and eventually they will get to the bottom of this. And when they do, they're going to find that she was the central key person, the key organizer that set the entire Trump coup into motion. And we're getting more and more evidence of that as we're now learning that it was people coming directly through the Clinton campaign via Perkins Coie, the lawyer, Mr. Sussman, feeding information directly to the FBI long before the word dossier was even used amongst the public and the media. So we're getting more and more evidence, and I'd suspected this for many, many, many months, that the rotten Reverend Clinton was the key instigator of the coup plot. And I think that that's going to be discovered when we get to the bottom of this. And as I said, the rotten Reverend Clinton knows that if the Republicans hold on to the House, that they'll keep pushing, they'll eventually get there, and she'll find herself under heavy scrutiny, probably investigation, very likely indictment, and probably convicted of her crimes. She's very well aware of this, and that's one reason why she may want to stay relevant, because she wants to have that card to play in her pocket. She wants to be able to say, if she and other former members of the Obama administration are eventually targeted for indictment because of their role in the coup, they want to be able to turn that around and say, see, this is just Trump being a tyrant, using the office, using his office, the power of his office to go after his political enemies. This just proves that he is a tyrannical dictator. And this is the narrative. It's already been cooked up. It's already there. It's already waiting to be rolled out. Just as soon as the indictments start coming down on the previous administration officials, the Barack Hussein Obama administration officials, as soon as all the indictments start coming down on these people, and especially with the rotten Reverend Clinton, this is going to be the narrative that they're going to roll out. And then they're going to try to use that to promote all sorts of violent mob-type activities throughout cities all across America. They'll try to cause civil unrest, massive disturbance, violence, and everything else. They will use this to promote their agenda and to keep themselves out of jail. So this is part of what's going on with the rotten Reverend Clinton as part of her larger agenda. But let me tell you something that I think many of you may not have thought about, some of you may have, and this is just, again, my opinion, but I know the Clintons very well. I've been watching for a very long time. And as I've mentioned before, we diagnosed the rotten Reverend Clinton months ago as a sociopath. A sociopath. She meets the clinical definition of a sociopath. Look it up. So it's my belief that the day after the 2016 election, that the rotten Reverend Clinton had only two things on her mind. One of them, rematch. The other one, revenge. Rematch and revenge are the two things guiding the evil rotten Reverend Clinton. And when I say evil, I truly mean it. I'm just not throwing that word out there lightly. I mean she is purely evil. Let's talk about the rematch. The day after the election, I'm convinced, the day after the election, the rotten Reverend Clinton decided, probably within hours after she realized that she was defeated, that she was going to already start working on her rematch against Trump in 2020. That's why she's doing all the things she's doing. She's never disassociated herself from all her organizations. She's continued to go out and do what she's always done. And when you run for president, you have to have a large organization. She still has all these large organizations intact. She's never dismantled them. She's keeping them going so that they're perfectly well in place to run in 2020. It's been on her mind since the day after the 2016 election, despite what she says. And how is she going to do it? She's going to do it on a fake draft Hillary campaign. She's going to go out and say, no, I said I wasn't going to run again. I'm done with politics. I'm just an activist now. But she's going to have a bunch of fake AstroTurf people out there begging and demanding for the rotten Reverend Clinton to jump in the race, to run again. It'll be a draft Hillary campaign. And then eventually she'll sit back and say, well, I really didn't want to run. I thought I was done, but boy, people just won't let me go away. They just love me too much. And they're telling me that I just have to run. I just have to run and defeat Donald Trump. I got to save the country. And boy, they just won't let me retire. They're going to make me run again. So what can I say? I guess I'm running for president again. This is what she's going to do. Of course, this has been her plan since day one, since the day after the election. She's never dismantled her organization. She continues massive fundraising. She continues to stay out there to try to stay relevant. She's already looked at the field. She knows that there are no national Democrats with the ability to build the type of organization you need to run a national campaign. They do not have the ability to raise the type of money she can raise. They do not have the national name recognition, and she is still the de facto leader of the party. And these other people whose names we hear, none of them can do. Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, none of these people have the ability to put together this type of organization. That takes, you have to start, at least 4 years in advance. None of these people have this type of organization. None of these people can raise that type of money. And the rotten Reverend Clinton will make sure that she takes out anyone who may be a serious challenge. Now, there could be some wild card that comes out of left field, like Michael Bloomberg, who has the money to self-finance a campaign and doesn't have to worry about going out there and raising all the money. He could probably, with all his money, put together or weave together some kind of organization. But he's so far on the left, and he is an honest liberal, unlike the rotten Reverend Clinton. She'll go out and lie and say whatever she has to say, wherever she's at in the country at the time. Bloomberg really won't do that. I mean, he would go out and campaign on his liberal ideas in New York. He'd do the same thing in Ohio. He's not a guy who's going to compromise his liberal positions. He'll go out and campaign as a true liberal and lose badly. The rotten Reverend Clinton, of course, is not quite that stupid. So, anyway, you can just see from everything that the rotten Reverend Clinton has been doing since the day after the election, she has every intention of running again in 2020. And she'll do it using deception. Deception. Let's keep something else in mind about the rotten Reverend Clinton. The second thing, revenge. Hillary Clinton, for the people who did not vote for her, she despises you. She hates you. Hates you passionately. And she doesn't even care about the people who did vote for her. She essentially despises America because America kept her from her power, which she felt she had earned or deserved or what have you. They kept her from power. In her mind, she's got one last chance to get her hands on that power. And if she is deprived of that power at her last opportunity in 2020, I can assure you she will unleash as much evil on this country as she possibly can for revenge for depriving her of her power. She and her friends will do everything they can to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, putting all kinds of crazy people out on the streets to engage in all sorts of violence, intimidation. They'll be doing all the types of things that you see, but you can multiply that 10 times, 100 times. She will literally try to destroy this country because they deprived her of her power. Hillary Clinton will burn the whole effing thing down. That she'll try. It'll be the scorched earth policy. You, America, kept me from my power. I effing hate you. And now I'm going to destroy you on my way out the door. That is what she will do. Make no mistake about it. She is pure evil. Pure evil. So that's what Hillary Clinton is doing, hanging around. She's trying to stay relevant, to be the viable and really only choice to run against Trump in 2020. She's trying to stay relevant because she wants to make sure that if she is indicted or investigated, that she has some kind of a stage that she can use to call Trump a tyrant, to help build support amongst the radical crazy people that would support her, so she can use that to propel herself and motivate and energize people who might come out and vote for her in 2020 when she does her stealth presidential run. And at the end of it all, if she doesn't finally get her power, she will use every last bit of her resources, as she will be, obviously very up in years, and knowing she's pretty close to death, she will use all of her resources, along with her friends, Mr. Soros and others. And keep in mind, they've been successful before. They orchestrated the putsch in Ukraine. They orchestrated these series of color revolutions that began back in 2007 in Tunisia. That was all astroturf revolutions put in place by Soros and friends of Clinton. It almost took down Egypt. Had Egypt listened to the Rotten Reverend Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama, the Muslim Brotherhood would have taken over Egypt. Fortunately, the military did not listen to them, and they were able to rescue the country. The Rotten Reverend Clinton will have a scorched earth policy if she is deprived of her power at her last opportunity in 2020, and she will use every resource she has to turn this country inside out and upside down to destroy America because they kept her from having her power. You don't think she's evil enough to do that? I do. This woman is as evil as you can get, through and through to the core, and she is a psychopath, a sociopath. That's what Hillary Clinton is doing by keeping herself out there and continuing to run her mouth and say the stupid things that she says. And the reason that Slick Willie is with her, because alone she can't draw a crowd. She has to have Slick there beside her. He can draw some people. She can't, and she knows it. Her resistance is exactly what it sounds like. It is a resistance. That is a revolutionary term. Generally, resistance is followed by violent revolution, and she knows that. The resistance for the Rotten Reverend Clinton is simply a declaration of a sectarian culture war, and in very similar fashion as the things that we saw breaking out in North Africa in the Middle East, beginning back in 2007 with Tunisia. It's the same plan. I mean, you can see exactly how these things are done, and she understands this very well. She's been a part of these things before, and the fact that if you think that they've done it in North Africa, the Middle East, they did it in Ukraine, you think that the Rotten Reverend Clinton won't unleash those same types of tactics on the United States, a country that she despises because the citizens there deprived her of her power? Do not underestimate the Rotten Reverend Clinton and the level of evil she is capable of. Fortunately, Trump understands this. That's why he's playing his cards the way he is. He knows that he cannot be the one to personally instigate the takedown of these people. He has to make sure it originates or comes from somewhere else. So he has to play his hand very carefully. But I trust Trump will execute his plan perfectly. And hopefully, the Rotten Reverend's plot will be foiled. We can all hope and pray for that. Now, I made a comment about the Rotten Reverend Clinton's doctor, the big black guy who was always standing right behind her. Many of us joke about the fact that he kept an EpiPen. I don't know if it was an EpiPen or not, but a lot of people, joked about that. We call him Dr. Feelgood and that whole thing. And I made a comment about him, so a lot of people chimed in. I had Kilda, Jeeves, Just Me, Babs, Truth Hurts, and Hey Hey, all to remind me that he died. Dr. Feelgood's dead. I did have one person that chimed in the comment section and said, no, that's not true. He didn't, that's just an internet rumor. So I don't know if Dr. Feelgood is dead or not. But we'll see if he shows up on the 2020 Rotten Reverend Clinton presidential campaign with his EpiPen and his Scooby van. We'll see if that happens. Okay, let's get to some the current news of the day. Okay, so I asked a poll question yesterday. I said, how many of you would prefer to see Hillary either A, would you rather see her, in prison, or would you rather see her, and I offered B, would you rather see her lose in a humiliating fashion to Trump in 2020? Okay, would you rather see the Rotten Reverend Clinton locked up, or would you rather see her defeated again in 2020? I have to say that was overwhelming in the comment section. Absolutely overwhelming. Everyone wants the Rotten Reverend Clinton to go to prison. They don't want to see her again in 2020. They don't even want to see any of that at all. What they want is the Rotten Reverend Clinton in prison. That is the overwhelming response. Probably 90% of the comments were that people want to see the Rotten Reverend Clinton thrown in prison. They have no interest in seeing her run again in 2020. Unfortunately, I think she is going to run again in 2020. She may be indicted by then. It's hard to say. Maybe we'll actually get something like maybe she'll run in 2020, be defeated in landslide fashion, and then shortly afterwards she'll be indicted. How about that? Maybe that'll work out. Well, this guy who's being called the Senate Doxer, this Jackson Costco, who has turned out to be a pretty shady character, as we learn more about him, he appeared in front of the judge, and it appears that he is being held without bond. And the judge has considered him to be dangerous to the public. He's dangerous to release. Now, I don't know what they learned in those hearings or what came out in those hearings, but keep in mind he's facing 5 felonies. Of course, they have to do with him, getting into the office when he wasn't authorized. Now, his lawyer says he was. He was authorized. He was he was an operative. He was being paid by an outside organization. He was okay to be there, but that's what his lawyer's saying. But he's being charged with entering into this office illegally, accessing a government computer he wasn't authorized to be on, then, of course, doxing these 3 senators, Republican senators, and then making a threat to the person who caught him. And so these things are all going on, but, there wasn't a gun involved. As far as I know, he didn't make any death threats. As far as I know, he doesn't have a violent criminal history. None of that type of stuff you would normally see where they would deny someone bail. But there's something that must have come out in that hearing, or something in his background. Something has to have been known for a judge to hold him without bond, without bail, and keep him in jail until his court hearing date, his next court hearing. But that is exactly the case. Jackson Costco, held without bond by the judge, who's considered him to be too dangerous to release. Very interesting. We'll have to see how that story develops. There's something else going on here. Rosenstein now saying to the Congress that he is not going to turn over the memos that were subpoenaed by them. He's refusing. He's saying, I don't care if you subpoenaed these documents or not. I am not turning them over. That's what Rosenstein is saying to Goodlatte's committee. He's also now saying that he's not going to appear before the House Judiciary Committee tomorrow, the House Joint Committee, which was supposed to happen Thursday, will be today. He was supposed to appear today, Thursday, in front of the Joint Committee, but he says he's not showing up. Now, the big mistake that was made here is they invited him. So they invite him 3 weeks ago, and he waits to the day before to say he's not coming. Of course, they should have subpoenaed him. Now, apparently Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan have commented on this and said, yeah, we knew that we invited him. He wasn't going to show up. And we've been urging Bob Goodlatte to subpoena him. But for some reason, they're saying that Bob Goodlatte is not really showing much interest in an actual subpoena to Rosenstein. Now, maybe he wanted to give him the invite first and the subpoena later. Maybe he's wanting to drag it out to after the midterms. Maybe he's been told to do that. Maybe he's got some reason for that. But Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows don't quite understand it, and they've not been let in on it if that is the reason. They say that Goodlatte is, for some reason, not showing much interest in a subpoena to Rosenstein to get him in there. So the best that they could get was an invitation. And they're a little frustrated as a result of that. So there you go. Rosenstein refusing to turn over the subpoenaed documents to Congress, which they have an absolute right to see, and that he has decided he is not going to appear before them, the committee, tomorrow. He's just not going to show up. So maybe they'll get a subpoena on him. Maybe they won't. But I would say that the patience of Jordan and Meadows is certainly being tested at this point. They keep talking about going through with impeachment on Rosenstein. We will see if they follow up with any type of impeachment. The paper's already there. They just haven't put him in place. Paul Ryan is not in support of it, and it's tough to do if you don't have the speaker to get behind it. It generally won't go anywhere. But even if it did, it might make it out of the House, but once it got to the Senate, it would be dead on arrival. So it's really not going anywhere, but it makes a political statement. Sometimes it puts enough pressure on an AG that they would step down. But Rosenstein can't step down. He has got to stay in his position because he's got to continue to cover his crimes and the crimes of his associates. And he's, like everyone else in Washington, hoping and praying for Democrats to take over the House so that they can put the kibosh on the investigations. That's why I say, after the midterms, everything is going to change. Everything. But there you go, Rosenstein. Judicial Watch has found more classified documents on the Rotten Reverend Clinton's email server. It appears that she attempted to delete some of these, but failed. Some of these are ones that she failed to disclose. They received 288 pages of new emails. And it appears that out of those 288 pages, Judicial Watch has found 3 more classified emails. I don't know how many more classified emails Judicial Watch has turned up with these FOIA requests, but it's got to be at least 25, 30, somewhere in that range of classified emails that they have turned up. One of them was to Jake Sullivan. One was to Sidney Blumenthal, who doesn't even have the security clearance to even be receiving or sending classified information. And another one to Cheryl Mills. Now keep in mind, if you, me, or any ordinary person were to even be found mishandling one piece of classified information, we would be indicted and sent to jail. With the Rotten Reverend Clinton, they're discovering hundreds. It appears that there may have been thousands. Yet, the Department of Justice, headed up by Jeff Sessions, just refuses to touch Hillary Clinton. It's maddening for all of us. Well, we had the director of the Federal Bureau of Insubordination, Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray, testifying to Congress today, the Senate. Rand Paul asked him, quote, "Do you think it's possible that the president's conversations with international leaders are in the FISA database?" No Shit Sherlock Ray replied, he says, "I am not sure there is anything I can speak to. I am not sure there is anything I can speak to." That's not a no. That's not a no. In other words, are they spying on Trump? Are they listening to Trump? Are they capturing his communications? You bet they are. They have been for a long time, even before he probably ran for president. And they continue to. And they'll never stop. Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray is another person that needs to be gone right after the midterms. He's part of the problem. He's a swamp creature. We now have Martha McSally in Arizona has now opened up her lead by 6 points. 6 points. Martha McSally up in Arizona. Of course, we've all heard that Nikki Haley resigned. She'll be leaving at the end of the year from her position. As you know, I was no big fan of Nikki Haley. If you remember, 2 weeks before the election, she was asked about Trump, and she said she was not a fan. Not a fan. She's a neocon. She's a neocon. Hates Trump. But he gave her the job. And she's been probably the best UN ambassador that Israel has ever had. And I do believe that she will challenge Trump in 2020. A lot of people are suggesting she was that person who wrote that anonymous article in the New York Times. Now, I'm not going to go that far. I wouldn't 100% rule it out, but I don't think so. It's possible, but I don't think so. But I do think that she is no fan of Trump, and that she only took the position to advance her career, and that she will use that to primary Trump in 2020. That's my opinion. We now have Nate Silver, Hi-Ho Silver, now saying that the Kavanaugh debacle could cost the Democrats the House. Yes, it could. Very well could. Still a month away, but people are pretty pissed off. As I continue to go through these races that I've been working on for the past 2 or 3 days, getting ready to get to some more of them, these are the 38 races that will decide who holds on to the House. It should be noted that when you get right down to it, the midterms are probably going to be decided, as I've been talking a lot about turnout, but I want to get more specific. Obviously, most white men vote Republican. It's a majority. If white men turn out in good numbers, that's very good, and they likely will. But this race is really going to come down, and the people who are going to decide this race, really, these 38 seats, are going to be women in the suburbs. Suburban women are going to decide who holds on to the House in the midterms. And if you want to define that down even closer, I would say white women in the suburbs are going to decide who holds on to the House. If the majority of women vote Democrat, especially these women in the suburbs, vote Democrat, they will win the House. They will win most of these races. If these women cross over and vote Republican, then the Republicans will win the House. This is a battle for the heart and soul of white women in the suburbs. That's what it's really going to come down to in almost all of these races. And that's why you see the Democrats have targeted the women's vote. That's what the whole Kavanaugh scam was all about. It was to enrage white women living in the suburbs. That was the whole plot. Now, it may have backfired because a lot of women in the suburbs, white women in the suburbs, have husbands. They have brothers, they have fathers, they have sons. So that's a double-edged knife sword right there. Double-edged sword. And it looks like it may be going against the Democrats. But ultimately, if you get right down to the brass tacks, in these 38 races, it will be the turnout of white women in the suburbs and whether or not they vote Republican or Democrat that will decide the House of Representatives in the 2018 midterm elections. With that in mind, let's get back to these races. We have Kentucky, District 6, Amy McGrath, the Democrat, against Andy Barr, the Republican. This is currently in the toss-up category. Trump won here by 15 points in 2016, but McGrath is a fairly strong candidate. Of course, we know the Democrats are running lots of women in this midterm, and they're running lots of military people in the midterm. And McGrath is a former fighter pilot. So she's a Democrat, but she's a former fighter pilot. She's running against Andy Barr. It's a toss-up. District 6 in Kentucky. A Democrat's a Democrat, whether they fly a fighter jet or not. If you elect Amy McGrath, it could very well lead to the Democrats taking control of the House of Representatives, and that's the end of the country as we know it. I think the choice there is pretty clear in Kentucky. Maine, District 2, we have Jared Golden, Democrat, running against Bruce Poliquin, Republican. This is also in the toss-up category, but Poliquin had a decent showing in 2016. He is the incumbent. He got 53% of the vote in 2016. So, you know, it's still a close race. It's still considered a toss-up. I believe he is still up by a couple of points, but it is tightening up. So again, this whole midterm election will come down to midterms. So if you are in Maine, District 2, you need to get out and vote for Bruce Poliquin. And especially if you are a white female in the suburbs in Maine, definitely you have to get out and vote. You could decide the midterm elections. Michigan, District 8. We have Alyssa Stotkin, the Democrat, running against Mike Bishop, the Republican. This is also in the toss-up category. Now, Stotkin, however you pronounce her name, I think it's Stotkin, S-T-O-T-K-I-N, Stotkin. She is former CIA, former deep state, also served in the Department of Defense. She's one of these people that look real strong to the Democrats. They're putting a ton of money. It's in Michigan. It's a place they want to do well in. A lot of money going into that race right now. And the Democrats thought they had this one in the bag. They really did. This is one of the races that the Democrats had penciled in is a most likely to win. But right now, it's still in toss-up status. But it is going to be a hard-fought race there. A lot of resources going into it for Stotkin. So you've got to get out if you're a Republican, especially a white woman, Republican in the suburbs. There in Michigan, you've got to get out and vote for Mike Bishop, District 8, Michigan. We have Michigan District 11. Haley Stevens, the Democrat, running against Lena Epstein, the Republican. This also is in the toss-up category. Trump won this district by just 4 points. And this particular Republican here, this is one of those open seats, is actually replacing an anti-Trump Republican who didn't want to be in Congress with Trump as the president. So the anti-Trump Republican bailed, and so we're looking at Lena Epstein running against Haley Stevens. So you got to get out District 11 in Michigan and support Lena Epstein, the Republican. This is currently in the toss-up category. Very, very close race. Trump carried it by 4. It's very winnable. And again, these are the races we cannot lose. We cannot lose any of these races that we should win. And we have to actually win some races that we were not supposed to win. So the deck is stacked against us. It'll all come down to turnout. Make sure you get out and get it done on November 6th in Michigan in District 11. We have Minnesota, District 1. Dan Feehan, Democrat, running against Jim Hagedorn, Republican. This also is in the toss-up category. Trump won here by 15 points. The only problem here is that despite the fact that Trump did well, the Republican Party doesn't feel that strongly about Hagedorn. They just don't feel he's a strong candidate. And I've been hearing that they've been pulling resources out of that race and 3 or 4 other races. So the Republicans apparently are looking at 3 or 4 races and acting as if they want to concede at the national level. It's okay, well, we may not win these. Let's pull out of here and let's focus on these ones that we really think we can win. So they're now kind of doing some strategic movery with money and resources in some of these races, deciding whether or not they want to fight them or fight some other battles somewhere else. But despite what the National Republican Party does and the RNC does, if you live up there in Michigan in District 1, you got to get out and vote for Jim Hagedorn. It's Trump by 15 points there. And even if Hagedorn is not, the greatest Republican, like I have to do here in Ohio, many of you will have to do there in Michigan, hold your nose. We need the R. We need the R. We'll worry about Mr. Hagedorn when he gets to Congress. But right now, we need to hold on to the House of Representatives. And even if you have to hold your nose and vote for Hagedorn, do it. We must hold on to the House. Minnesota, District 1. How much more have we got? Okay. Give me a few more days before we wrap this up. We'll keep working on it, though. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you guys. Bye.